Sir, I think this piece is well above your budget. Perhaps the department store on level 2 would be more appropriate.
The sentence floated across the marble showroom like perfume nobody wanted to smell. Vivienne, 38, 12 years with Aurelian Watch Company at Bal Harbour shops, smiled the way she always smiled when she was about to ask someone to leave. Walter did not move. He had been standing at that counter for 40 minutes. Hands folded behind his back. Breathing even. A quiet man in soft gray linen and old leather shoes. In the corner, a young woman pressed the red button on her phone. What Vivienne did not yet know was that the contract folded inside Walter's jacket would, by close of business that day, cost her boutique exactly $100 million in cancelled inventory. What she did not yet know was that he had signed her stock himself. But to understand why that morning would cost her everything, you need to know who Walter really was. Walter was born in Detroit, in the cold winter of 1948, on a January morning so brutal the milkman's bottles froze before he reached the porch. His father, Curtis, ran a rivet line at the Ford River Rouge plant for 31 years. His mother, Pearl, hemmed suit jackets for a custom tailor's shop on Woodward Avenue, where the white owner kept her wages in a separate envelope marked Negro labor. Walter learned to count quarters before he learned to read. He was a quiet boy. Watched everything. Said little. At 14, he walked into Eli's Watch Repair on Hastings Street, the only black-owned watch shop in the Black Bottom neighborhood. Mr. Eli was 73, half-blind, and the slowest man in Detroit. He looked at Walter for a long moment. Asterisk, you patient? Asterisk asterisk, yes, sir. Asterisk asterisk, you'll do. Asterisk for the next 4 years, Walter sat at a horsehair stool in the back of that shop. He learned the inside of a movement the way other boys learned the inside of a baseball glove. He learned to hold his breath when seating a balance wheel. He learned to read a hairspring with his fingertips. He learned that the city would not love him for any of it. In 1963, the city of Detroit demolished Black Bottom to build Interstate 375. Eli's Watch Repair came down with everything else. Mr. Eli died 8 months later in a rented apartment near 8 Mile, his bench tools in a milk crate beside the bed. Walter inherited the crate. He was 16. He kept working. In 1968, a recruiter from a small American watch company drove down from New Hampshire to interview at Cass Technical High School. He had heard, vaguely, about a Detroit kid who could clean a perpetual calendar in under 2 hours. The interview lasted 9 minutes. Walter was offered a job as second watchmaker at the Aurelian Atelier in Manchester, New Hampshire, the next morning. He was the only black man on the bench. He was also the youngest. The owner's son, a tall, awkward kid named Henry, barely 22 himself, sat at the table beside Walter for 3 years and learned everything Walter knew. They became friends in the slow, patient way watchmakers become friends. Through silence. Through shared lenses. Through the soft tick-tick-tick of small things that had to be done correctly the first time. In 1974, Walter signed his first caliber, the Platinum Constellation 1962, reference 8801, serial number 014. Henry signed beside him. The two signatures still sat, etched in microscopic copperplate, on the bridge plate of every constellation produced in Manchester. In 1976, on the 12th of May, Walter married a young registered nurse from St. Joseph's Hospital named Loretta. In 1986, he went home to Detroit and started his own company. He sold his car to lease the warehouse. Loretta took a second shift at the hospital to cover the rent. He named the company after his mother. Pearl Distribution Group. Today, 38 years later, Pearl Distribution served 211 points of sale across the United States and Canada. Every Aurelian watch sold in North America passed through one of Walter's 6 warehouses. Every retailer paid Pearl Distribution before they paid the brand. The annual contract between Walter and Aurelian was worth, gross, $100 million. It was up for renewal at 5 o'clock that afternoon. Walter had not yet signed. That morning, at 11:14 a.m., he had walked into the Bal Harbour boutique alone. No assistant. No driver. No suit. Just a man in grey linen and old shoes, carrying a brown leather portfolio scuffed at the corners, the brass clasp dulled by 40 years of being opened and opened again. Inside the portfolio, the unsigned contract. A mystery shopping audit report from the previous quarter. A pen with his initials engraved at the cap. He had come to see the staff work before he signed. He always did. Vivienne, of course, knew none of this. She knew only what she always knew. What someone deserved to be sold to. Vivienne had wanted to work at Aurelian Bal Harbour since she was 19. She had grown up in Coral Gables in a house with a pool that needed cleaning every Tuesday. Her mother sold real estate. Her father ran a yacht dealership on Brickell. The family had money the way Florida families have money, loud, sun-bleached, slightly anxious. When she was hired, 12 years before the Tuesday morning of Walter's visit, she cried in the staff bathroom for joy. Then she went back out to the showroom and sold a $40,000 tourbillon to a Russian businessman before lunch. She had a gift. She could read a customer in 3 seconds. Watch. Shoes. Belt. Phone case. The cut of the cuff. The way a man looked at his wife when she touched a price tag. Vivienne saw it all. She moved like a heron in shallow water, slow, precise, deadly when she struck. In 12 years, she had become the top-selling associate in the entire Florida region. 3 years running. There was a small brass plaque behind the counter with her name on it. There was also a folder in Human Resources at corporate headquarters in Manchester. The folder was thick. 9 formal complaints in 18 months. A black surgeon from Atlanta who said she was followed by security when she walked in. A Mexican-American couple from El Paso who were told the boutique didn't carry the entry-level pieces. A young Indian-American software founder told the elevator to the 2nd floor was for the public boutique. The folder grew. The folder was archived. Vivienne sold $17 million a year. You do not fire $17 million. That morning, Vivienne arrived at 9:48 a.m., carrying a triple-shot latte and a small migraine. She had reason to be alert. At 3 o'clock, she was scheduled to meet the new North American distributor for Aurelian, a man she had heard about for years but never met. The previous distributor, an older gentleman from Boston named Edmund, had retired the spring before. The new appointment had been confidential, internal. She had Googled the name. Nothing came up. Some boutique director out of Manchester, probably. Old money. Probably white. Probably mid-40s. Probably the kind of man who liked espresso and discreet flattery. She had reserved the private salon. She had ordered crudité. She had practiced her opening. She had no idea the man she was waiting for had been standing 12 feet behind her since 11 o'clock. At 11:14 a.m., the boutique door slid open without a sound. The Aurelian flagship at Bal Harbour shops was a temple. White marble underfoot. Vitrines of polished glass like quiet aquariums. Soft jazz piped through invisible speakers, Coltrane, Naima, looping every 23 minutes. The air carried 3 smells, cedar, leather polish, and the faint metallic ghost of a humidifier set too high. Walter stepped inside. He paused. Took it in. The way a man pauses before he enters a courtroom. Vivienne was helping a couple in white tennis whites at the far counter, her back to the door. She felt the small change of pressure when the door opened, turned her head slightly, registered the new arrival in 3 seconds. Linen jacket, soft, pale gray, slightly creased at the elbow. Brown leather shoes, scuffed. A brown portfolio in his right hand, also scuffed. Skin, dark. Hair, white, close cropped, neat. Age, late 60s, early 70s maybe. Verdict, tourist. Wrong floor. She turned back to her couple and finished the sale. Walter walked, unhurried, to the central display case. He stopped in front of it. Looked down at the platinum chronograph nested on its velvet pillow. He smiled, just slightly, only at the corner of his mouth. He waited. 2 minutes passed. 3. 4. A young saleswoman in a black suit emerged from the back. Aaliyah, 26, hired 6 months ago. She started toward Walter. Vivienne caught her elbow without looking. "I'll handle the gentleman," Vivienne said, low and pleasant. Asterisk, why don't you check the inventory in the back? Asterisk. Aaliyah hesitated. Looked at Walter. Looked at Vivienne. Went to the back. Walter watched the exchange in the reflection of the vitrine glass. Said nothing. At 11:23, Vivienne approached him. She did not put her hands on the counter. She kept them clasped in front of her, the way one keeps one's hands clasped at a distance from a stranger. Asterisk, can I help you find your way somewhere, sir? Asterisk, I'd like to see a watch, Walter said. His voice was low, soft, untroubled. Asterisk, the Constellation 1962, the platinum version, please. Reference 8801. Asterisk. Vivienne's smile thinned by exactly 2 millimeters. The Constellation 1962 Platinum was a $160,000 piece. There was exactly one in the showroom, serial number 014, in the central case, 6 feet behind her. Let me see if we have that available, she said. You do, Walter said quietly. Asterisk, it's in the case behind you. Asterisk. He pointed. Vivienne did not turn around. Asterisk. Let me check anyway. Asterisk. She walked into the back room. Walter's phone vibrated once against his chest, then twice, then went still. He did not reach for it. He waited. Vivienne disappeared into the back room. 9 minutes passed. Walter stood in front of the case. He did not shift his weight. He did not check his phone. He looked at the watch on the velvet pillow and the watch looked back at him. Coltrane started over. The same loop. The same 23 minutes. At 11:32, a man in his late 40s walked in, short, balding, a yellow polo shirt with a country club crest, pleated khakis, boat shoes. Vivienne emerged from the back instantly, as if she had been listening for the chime of his particular kind of money. Asterisk. Welcome back, Bradley. How was Aspen? Asterisk. Asterisk. Cold. Lousy snow. I'm here for the submariner you set aside. Asterisk. Asterisk. Of course, let me bring it right out for you. Sit down, please. Mineral water still or sparkling? Asterisk. She walked him past Walter to the leather club chairs near the window without breaking stride. She did not look at Walter. She did not say be right with you, sir. Walter remained at the case. He waited. At 11:48, 2 women entered, mid-20s, designer handbags, sunglasses pushed up like crowns. Vivienne brought them champagne. Pulled out 3 pieces. Laughed at something one of them said. She walked them to the door at 12:11 with a cream-colored shopping bag tied with a ribbon. She did not look at Walter. She walked back to the counter. Walter was still there. She glanced at him sideways. Sighed, very slightly, the way one sighs at a pet that has not yet learned the rule about the couch. Then she crossed to the periodicals shelf, pulled a glossy product catalog from the rack, and walked back to him. Asterisk. Sir. Asterisk. She held the catalog out to him with the tips of 2 fingers. As if it were a wet paper towel. As if her hand should not have to come closer. Asterisk. Why don't you look through this while you decide what you're really here for? Asterisk. Walter took the catalog. He did not open it. He set it down on the marble counter, very gently, beside the brown leather portfolio. Thank you, he said. Asterisk, I would still like to see the constellation. Asterisk, Vivienne's smile flickered once. She turned and walked away. The door slid open again at 12:18. A man in his 50s walked in, silver hair swept back, navy blazer, open collar shirt, the kind of tan that comes from a yacht and not a beach. A small wooden case under his arm. Asterisk, Vivienne. Cara. Asterisk, dear, in Italian. Asterisk, Marco. Asterisk, Vivienne pivoted instantly, away from Walter, away from the catalog on the counter, away from the conversation she had not finished. Asterisk, I didn't know you were in town. Asterisk, just for the weekend. I brought you the Patek for service. Asterisk, of course, come, let's get you settled. Asterisk, she walked Marco to the leather chairs. She did not look back at Walter. Aaliyah, behind the far counter, made a small sound. Like a breath caught against teeth. She looked down at her hands. Walter watched the exchange in the reflection of the vitrine. A small gold band caught the boutique light on his left hand. It was thin. Worn. Engraved on the inside, though no one in the showroom could see, with a date, May 12, 1976, and a name. Loretta, 50 years his wife, would later say that Walter had not raised his voice in their home in all those decades. Not once. Not at the children. Not at the dog. Not at the world. He did not need to. The door slid open again at 12:24. A woman in her early 50s, beige slacks, navy blouse, a small gold cross at her throat, walked in. Behind her, a tall young woman in jeans and a Howard University sweatshirt, hair pulled back, a black leather backpack over one shoulder. The mother, Denise, was holding a printed brochure. The daughter, Brianna, was 24. Second-year law student. In Miami for the long weekend. She had driven her mother up from Coral Gables that morning to help her pick out a graduation gift. Denise had been saving for a year. She wanted her daughter to have something nice. Something that lasted. They had been in the boutique for 19 seconds when Brianna saw Walter at the counter. She saw the leather portfolio. She saw Vivienne, returning from the leather chairs after settling Marco, breeze past Walter to greet a new customer at the door, a white man in a Patagonia vest, with a bright, toothy welcome to Aurelian. She watched Walter watch this happen. Brianna stopped. Touched her mother's arm. Mom. Hold on. Denise looked up, distracted. What is it, baby? Sit down on the bench for a second. I'll be right back. Denise sat. Brianna walked, slowly, toward the rear of the showroom. She positioned herself behind a display column of glass shelves stocked with cleaning kits and watch windows, where the angle gave her a clear view of the central counter. Of Walter. Of Vivienne. She slid her phone out of her back pocket. She opened the camera app. She held the phone vertical against the column, low at her hip, where Vivienne would not see. She pressed record. The little red dot bloomed. She did not breathe. Vivienne sold the man in the Patagonia vest a $46,000 perpetual calendar in 7 minutes. She walked him to the door, complimented his vest, watched him cross the marble corridor toward the boardwalk. She came back inside. She walked past Walter as if he were a column. She went to the cash drawer. She pulled out a microfiber cloth. She began to polish, slowly, the brass plaque behind the counter that bore her name. She let him stand there. 2 more minutes. 3. When she finally turned to face him, her smile had hardened into something flat and bright and final. She came at Walter the way a heron comes at a frog. Sir, are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't a souvenir shop. The words landed in the air between them like coins thrown on a table. Aaliyah, from behind the counter on the far side, looked up sharply. Her hand stopped on the cloth she was using to polish a glass tray. She did not move. She looked at Walter. Walter did not look at her. Brianna's phone, behind the column, kept rolling. Walter spoke. Quietly. Evenly. Asterisk, I would like to see the constellation, please. Asterisk, Vivienne tilted her head. Smiled the kind of smile that has a knife in it. Asterisk, sir, I think this piece is well above your budget. It's listed at $160,000. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the department store on level 2. They have very nice quartz models that look quite similar. Asterisk, the marble seemed to hum. Bradley, in the country club polo, looked up from his submariner box. Marco lowered his espresso cup. The salesman at the second counter went very still. Walter said nothing. He looked, very briefly, at the catalog Vivienne had handed him earlier. Then he looked at Vivienne. Asterisk, I'd still like to see it. Asterisk, Vivienne laughed. A small, sharp laugh, the kind that escapes when one cannot believe the audacity of a thing. Asterisk, sir. Asterisk, she leaned forward, just slightly, the way one leans toward a child who has misunderstood the question. Asterisk, I really don't think you understand. This isn't a place you walk into off the boardwalk. This is a destination boutique. If you want, I can have someone walk you down to the food court. There's a wonderful gelato shop near the elevator. Asterisk, a fragment of silence opened in the showroom. Long enough to feel. Walter said, asterisk, I would like to see the watch. Asterisk, Vivienne's voice rose, deliberately, just enough for the rest of the showroom to catch. Asterisk, sir, I'm sorry. I cannot keep wasting my time on this. We have a clientele to attend to. I'm going to ask you to either make a decision about something within your means or to leave the premises. Asterisk, Brianna's phone, behind the column, captured every word. Denise, on the bench by the door, had stopped pretending to read the brochure. Her hand had risen, slowly, to her mouth. Aaliyah's hand had begun to shake on the polished cloth. She set the cloth down. She kept her eyes on the counter. A tear slid loose. She did not wipe it. Walter did not move. His hand stayed folded behind his back. His breathing did not change. He had heard worse. He had survived worse. He would not flinch now. But Vivienne was not done. She turned to the security guard standing by the front door, a wide, soft-shouldered man named Eduardo, 50, 21 years on the job. She raised her voice. Asterisk, Eduardo, would you mind keeping an eye on the gentleman at the central case? He's been here a long time and I want to make sure nothing happens to the merchandise. Asterisk, Eduardo looked at Walter. Looked at Vivienne. Looked back at Walter. Said, very slowly, asterisk, yes, ma'am. Asterisk, he took 2 steps toward the central case and stopped. He did not come closer. He did not want to. Marco, in the leather chair, set down his espresso cup with the smallest possible click. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at his shoes. Vivienne crossed back to the counter. She faced Walter directly. Asterisk, sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the case. Please. We don't allow customers to lean against the displays. Asterisk, Walter had not been leaning. He had been standing with his hands folded behind his back for an hour and 20 minutes, motionless. He stepped back. 1 pace. Quiet. The cedar in the air took him, briefly, to a wooden bench at the back of Eli's watch repair. Age 15. Pine resin and machine oil. The slow tick of a clock he was learning to put back together. Mr. Eli, half blind, calling out from the next bench, asterisk, patient hands, son. Patient hands, asterisk, the smell faded. He was back at Bal Harbour. Vivienne crossed the showroom to the cleaning station. She picked up a small spray bottle of glass cleaner. She walked back, past Walter, around the counter, and stopped at the central display case in front of the Constellation 1962. She sprayed the case. Then, with a microfiber cloth, very slowly, very deliberately, she wiped the panel of glass that Walter had been looking at for the last 78 minutes. Front to back. Side to side. She wiped the spot where his finger had brushed when he had pointed at the case. She wiped longer than she needed to. She did this, the way one wipes down a thing that has been touched by something soiled, while looking at Walter. Walter watched her. He did not blink. The bottle of glass cleaner clicked softly against the marble when she set it down. Brianna was no longer breathing. Aaliyah was no longer pretending to polish anything. She was just standing there. Both hands flat on the counter. Eyes wet. Silent. In the back of the showroom, the Coltrane loop started over for the fourth time. The same 23 minutes. The same world. A world inside which Vivienne was certain, absolutely certain, that the man at her counter was a problem she had handled correctly. A world inside which the small brass plaque behind the counter still bore her name in 3 places. A world inside which the appointment with the new North American distributor was still scheduled for 3 o'clock. It was 12:53. In Manchester, New Hampshire, 2,000 miles away, a man named Henry was sitting at his desk reviewing a financial report. He had a scheduled call with Walter at 1:30. He was looking forward to it. He always was. In Miami, Walter took one slow breath. He let it out, just as slowly. He reached, very slowly, into the inside breast pocket of his linen jacket. Walter's hand emerged from his jacket holding a small black phone. Slim. Plain. Old. He thumbed it open. Dialed a number from memory. The showroom waited. Vivienne's mouth was still open. The microfiber cloth was still in her hand. The bottle of glass cleaner was still on the counter where she had set it. The phone connected on the second ring. A man's voice, warm and clear, came through the speaker, not loud, but loud enough. The boutique had gone quiet enough. Walter. How's Bal Harbour? Walter spoke, quietly, into the receiver. Henry. It's Walter. We need to revisit Bal Harbour. There was a pause on the other end. The kind of pause that has 30 years of friendship inside it. Tell me. Pull serial 14 of the Platinum Constellation. The one I signed in 74. I want to confirm something before close of business. The pause was longer this time. Walter. What happened? I'll call you back in 5. Walter ended the call. Slid the phone back into his jacket pocket. He looked, for the first time in 79 minutes, directly at Vivienne. You should call your store director. Now. Vivienne tried to speak. Could not. She had heard one word clearly through the speaker. Walter. She had heard a name she had Googled the week before. A name with no internet footprint. A name that belonged to the new North American distributor she was supposed to meet, in the private salon, with crudité, at 3 o'clock. She had heard her own life rearrange itself in a single sentence. The microfiber cloth slipped from her fingers. It landed on the marble. Walter said again, more quietly, now. Vivienne reached for the counter to steady herself. The counter offered nothing back. The door to the back office opened. A tall man in his late 40s, thinning hair, navy suit, a small Aurelian pin on his lapel, emerged with a clipboard in his hand and the bored expression of a man about to handle a small inventory question. His name was Charles. 8 years store manager. He looked up. He saw Walter. He stopped walking. The clipboard slid out of his hand and clattered against the marble floor. Mr. Walter. The 2 words came out hoarse, half a whisper, half a prayer. Asterisk, we were expecting you at 3. Asterisk Vivienne turned her head, slowly, toward Charles. Her face was the color of new paper. Walter set the brown leather portfolio on the counter. Quietly. Without ceremony. He opened the brass clasp. He took out a small white card, heavy stock, black letterpress lettering, and placed it on the marble in front of Vivienne. It read, Walter, Director and Sole Distributor, Aurelian Watch Company, North America Region, Pearl Distribution Group, Detroit, Michigan, established 1986. He took out a second document. A folder. He opened it. Inside, the contract. 42 pages. Aurelian Watch Company, Pearl Distribution Group. Annual gross value, $100 million, renewal date, today. Signature line, still blank. He took out a third document. A bound report. The cover read, Aurelian Bal Harbour, Quarterly Mystery Shopping Audit. He set them all on the counter, side by side, like cards. Vivienne could not look at them. She was looking at Walter. Walter looked at her. The Constellation 1962, Platinum, reference 8801, serial number 014, he said quietly. Asterisk, I helped design that caliber when I was 26 years old. In a workshop in Manchester, New Hampshire. I was the only black man in the building. Asterisk, a small sound came out of Aaliyah's throat behind the counter. Half a sob. Half a laugh. She covered her mouth. Walter went on. Calm. Unhurried. Asterisk, my signature is on the bridge plate of every constellation produced by this company. So is Henry's. Henry, the gentleman whose voice you just heard on my phone, is the Chief Executive Officer of Aurelian Watch Company. He is currently boarding a private aircraft in Manchester. He will be in Miami before nightfall. Asterisk Marco, in the leather chair, stood up very quietly and walked to the back of the showroom to give the moment its room. Bradley, in the country club polo, had set his submariner box on the side table. He had not picked it back up. Brianna, behind the column, had tears running down her face. Her hand on the phone was steady. Walter turned, finally, to face the entire showroom. He spoke softly. Asterisk, my name is Walter. I have been distributing this brand in the United States for 38 years. Every watch in this case passed through one of my warehouses before it arrived here. Including the one Vivienne refused to show me. Asterisk, he paused. He looked back at Vivienne. Asterisk, you will not sell anything else today. Asterisk, he did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The brass plaque behind the counter, the one bearing Vivienne's name in 3 places, caught the boutique light and held it for a moment, as if listening. Charles took one step forward. His mouth opened. No sound came out. Behind him, in the private salon, the crudités sat untouched on a small silver tray. By 6 o'clock that evening, Henry's plane had left Manchester. Henry's jet landed at Miami Opa-locka Executive Airport at 9:47 p.m. By 10:22, he was sitting in the small private salon of the Aurelian Bal Harbour boutique, in front of an untouched plate of crudité, with Walter on his right and the regional vice president of Aurelian North America on his left. Charles stood across from them. Charles did not sit. Charles had been told not to. 23 years, Henry said quietly. He was looking down at the table, at the documents Walter had laid out in 3 neat rows. Asterisk, Walter and I have been in business 23 years. He has never once asked me to fly down for anything. Not once. Asterisk, Charles said nothing. Asterisk, you let your manager keep him standing for 80 minutes. Asterisk, sir, I wasn't on the floor. I didn't see, asterisk, that's the point, Charles. You didn't see. You weren't on the floor. You haven't been on the floor in months. Asterisk, Henry slid one of the documents toward him. The mystery shopping audit. This is the third quarterly report flagging Vivienne's behavior. The previous two were addressed to you. You signed for them. You did nothing. Charles closed his eyes. By midnight, the contract between Aurelian Watch Company and the Bal Harbour boutique had been suspended. Pending review. Indefinite. By 8 the next morning, Pearl Distribution Group had recalled the inventory. A truck pulled up to the loading dock at 7:42 a.m. Two men in gray uniforms walked into the boutique with empty padded crates. Aaliyah was the only employee present. She had been called in early. She did not ask why. She unlocked the cases herself. She watched the men pack the Constellation 1962, serial number 014, into its molded foam slot. She did not cry until they had driven away. By noon, Vivienne had been terminated. The termination letter cited Section 14.3 of her employment contract, conduct unbecoming and material damage to the brand. There was no severance. There was no 2-week notice. There was a single security escort to the parking garage and a typed list of 12 personal belongings to be mailed to her home address by the end of the week. She walked across the marble corridor of Bal Harbour shops in the soft soles of her work shoes, holding nothing. She did not look back. By Friday morning, the human resources file at Aurelian's headquarters in Manchester had been pulled. The 9 formal complaints in 18 months had become, when pulled back 12 full years, 31 complaints. 29 were black or brown customers. 2 were elderly white women in modest clothing. The file had a name. Inside HR they called it, quietly, the Vivienne folder. The folder was archived. The folder was now evidence. By Friday at 7:32 p.m. Brianna had posted the video. She titled it simply, Bal Harbour. Watch what she does, she did not include her own face. She did not narrate. She uploaded the unedited clip, 18 minutes and 41 seconds, beginning with the catalog handed off with 2 fingers, ending with the platinum spray bottle clicking against the marble. She tagged Aurelian Watch Company. She went to bed. By 6 a.m. Saturday, the video had 300,000 views. By Saturday afternoon, 2 million. By Sunday morning, 14.8 million. The hashtag was #Bal Harbour Shame. The Miami Herald picked it up at noon on Sunday. The Wall Street Journal by Monday morning. The New York Times ran it on the front page of the business section on Tuesday with the headline He built the brand. She treated him like a trespasser. The Washington Post ran an editorial on Wednesday. Vivienne's face, the still frame from Brianna's video, the moment of the smile with the knife in it, became, in 72 hours, the single most recognized face in luxury retail in the United States. Her phone, which she had not changed the number of, received 712 voicemails in the first 5 days. She stopped checking it. By the end of the second week, the stock of Bal Harbour Luxury Holdings, the Cayman-registered holding company that owned the boutique and 4 others, had fallen 11% on the Singapore exchange. $420 million in market value evaporated in 14 trading days. The board met in emergency session. 2 senior executives were asked to resign. They resigned. By the end of the third week, 9 prior customers had filed suit. Federal civil rights complaints. Discrimination in a place of public accommodation. The lead plaintiff was the black surgeon from Atlanta who, 6 years before, had been told the boutique didn't carry the entry-level pieces. Her name was on the original complaint that had been archived. The settlement, agreed to within 40 days to avoid trial, was $6.8 million. The settlement also required the boutique, as a condition, to publish on its homepage a public letter of apology, signed by Henry, and to keep the letter on the homepage for 1 calendar year. The letter went up on day 41. The boutique did not survive the year. 3 blocks south on Collins Avenue, in a smaller storefront with cleaner lines and more natural light, sat the boutique of Helvetia Maison, a small, quiet, family-owned competitor that had been petitioning Aurelian for distribution rights for 6 years. On day 6 after the video posted, Walter signed the contract. Helvetia Maison Bal Harbour became the new flagship Aurelian boutique for the southeastern United States, effective immediately. Annual contract, $100 million, same terms. New address. Helvetia hired its new staff over the course of 3 weeks. The first hire was Aaliyah. Walter himself made the call. Her new title was Director of Client Experience. Her starting salary was 3 times what she had been making at the old boutique. Her first task was to design the training program for the new floor staff, a program that would, within 6 months, become a model adopted by 12 other independent boutiques across the country. Her name went on a small brass plaque behind the counter. Just one. The shift was felt across the industry. Within 30 days, 4 other Swiss-style American watch brands operating in the United States, none of which had been involved in the incident, quietly announced new mystery shopping protocols across their entire boutique network. 2 of them retained Pearl Distribution Group as a consultant on the rollout. Walter declined the consulting fees. He asked, instead, that the brands fund scholarships in his mother's name. 3 of the 4 agreed. The first Pearl apprenticeship, awarded in late summer, went to a 19-year-old black woman from Birmingham, Alabama, who had been repairing pocket watches in her grandfather's basement since the age of 13. Her name was Jasmine. She started at Aurelian's Manchester atelier the following October. She was, like Walter half a century before her, the only black person on the bench. She would not be the last. Charles, the store manager, did not survive the second week. His termination letter cited Section 14.4, failure to act on reported conduct. Like Vivienne, he received no severance. Unlike Vivienne, he was not banned by the council. He was, however, named in the federal civil suit. He settled separately, for $240,000, payable from his own retirement account. He moved to Tampa. He took a job managing a marina. Eduardo, the security guard, was the only employee from the original boutique who was offered a position at the new Helvetia location. Aaliyah called him personally. He cried when he said yes. He had been the first employee in the showroom that morning to refuse, however quietly, to stand any closer to Walter than he absolutely had to. Aaliyah remembered. She put him at the front door. Same job. New uniform. New plaque. By the start of the 3rd month, the Florida Luxury Retail Council had convened a disciplinary hearing. The council, founded in 1991, governed luxury retail licensing in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. It had issued 1 permanent industry ban in its 33-year history. It now issued a second. Vivienne was banned, by unanimous vote of the 17-member board, from holding any sales position in any licensed luxury retail establishment in the state of Florida. The ban was permanent. It applied to 98 boutiques, 14 department stores, and 4 cruise line concessionaire programs. The civil settlement also included a personal liability finding against her. Personal fine, $175,000, payable in monthly installments over 15 years. Vivienne moved out of her Coral Gables apartment in late spring. She moved in with her mother, who had retired the year before and now spent her days managing the pool that needed cleaning every Tuesday. She did not return to retail. By the start of the 4th month, the old boutique on the Bal Harbour corridor had closed its doors permanently. The lease was not renewed. The vitrines were emptied. The marble floor was scrubbed and shined for the next tenant. The brass plaque behind the counter was crated and shipped to a small warehouse in Hialeah, where it was stored on a shelf, face down, beside other obsolete fixtures. A beige paper sign was taped to the inside of the front door. It read, "Premises closed for restructuring." It stayed there until a new tenant, a stationery boutique from Vermont, moved in 8 months later and replaced it with a hand-lettered window decal. Brianna's video, in addition to its viewership, won the Online News Association's Award for Citizen Journalism the following spring. She accepted the award in a navy suit. She thanked her mother. She did not show the video again. She also, during her third year of law school, took an internship at the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. She was offered a permanent position the day she graduated. She accepted. By the end of the 4th month, Henry had personally written 7 letters of apology to the original complainants in the HR file. He wrote them by hand. They were sent on Aurelian Watch Company letterhead. He included, with each, a single timepiece, the Constellation 1962, Platinum version, reference 8801. Serial numbers 015 through 021. Each one was inscribed on the case back with the name of the recipient and a single word. The word was, repaired. 6 months later, in a quiet jazz club on Detroit's west side, Walter raised a glass. The jazz club was on Livernois Avenue, half a block north of 7 Mile Road, in a row of small storefronts that had been holding the line, defiantly, for 50 years. It was called the Cliff. Walter had been coming there since 1973. It was a Saturday in October. The trees on Livernois had turned. The air was cold and clear. Inside, the room held 40 people. There were small round tables. White tablecloths. A trio of horn, bass, and brushed snare playing After You've Gone at low volume. At the table by the window sat Walter, in a charcoal suit with no tie. Beside him, Loretta, in a deep red wrap dress, the small gold cross at her throat catching the candlelight. Across from them, their 2 children, Marcus, 43, an architect in Chicago, and Yvonne, 41, a pediatric oncologist in Houston. Beside Yvonne sat her husband Daniel, and beside Daniel sat the youngest at the table, Pearl, age 6, named after a great-grandmother she had never met. Pearl was eating, with great seriousness, a piece of chocolate cake that was as large as her face. It was Walter and Loretta's 50th wedding anniversary. Walter raised his glass. He did not give a speech. He had not given a speech at the wedding either. He looked, instead, at Loretta. He held the look for a long moment. He said, quietly, "Thank you for marrying me." Loretta laughed. She covered her mouth. She nodded. The trio kept playing. Outside, the changes set in motion that morning at Bal Harbour kept moving forward, in the slow, durable way real change moves. Aurelian Watch Company, in partnership with Pearl Distribution Group, had funded the Detroit Watchmakers Fellowship, 12 full apprenticeship slots per year for young Black Americans from communities historically excluded from the trade. The fellowship was named, by Walter's request, in honor of the long-demolished Eli's Watch Repair on Hastings Street. Each apprentice would spend 2 years on the bench in Manchester, New Hampshire, learning what Walter had learned, with full housing, full salary, and a guarantee of placement. The first cohort of 12 had begun the previous month. The Florida Luxury Retail Council, in the wake of its first new permanent industry ban in 3 decades, had implemented a mandatory mystery shopping audit program, every licensed boutique in the state, twice a year, by an independent third party, with results filed with the council and reviewed by an oversight board that included 2 community appointees. The program had been in operation for 90 days. It had already triggered 7 separate disciplinary reviews. Aaliyah, after 12 months as Director of Client Experience at the Bal Harbour Helvetia, had opened the first satellite location of the Helvetia Maison Aurelian Boutique program in Atlanta. Her staff was 11 people. 8 of them were graduates of the Pearl Apprenticeship or the new training program she had designed. Her brass plaque, behind the counter of the new boutique, was the only one on the wall. By choice. In the small jazz club on Livernois, the trio finished After You've Gone. There was a small round of applause. Pearl, age 6, looked up from her cake long enough to clap with chocolate fingers. Walter set down his glass. He looked at his wife. He looked at his children. He looked at his granddaughter. He said nothing. Outside, on the Avenue of Fashion, a soft autumn rain began to fall on the leaves. Loretta took his hand under the tablecloth. Elegance is not what you put on. It is what you carry when no one is watching. Have you ever stood invisible while others were welcomed? Have you ever waited 80 minutes for a person to see you? If you have, and many of us have, then this story is yours, too. The world does not always give back what we put into it. But sometimes the man at the counter has built the brand. Sometimes the manager has written her own ending. Sometimes the woman in the corner with a phone in her hand changes everything for everyone who comes after. Sometimes the quiet ones are the loudest in the end. Tell us in the comments. Tell us about the morning you were treated like nothing, by someone who would later learn exactly who you were. Your story matters here. If this one moved you, leave a like, it tells us to keep telling them. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Share it with the person who needs it most. And tap the bell so the next story finds you the moment it goes live. See you guys in the next video. Peace.